Hey guys, and welcome back to the I Have Too Many Plants show. So I've started hardening off my plants already, although I don't expect to be planting out before April 1st. But I've been trying to sell some of my seedlings because I have too many. I have way too many. And not that I can't find a place for them in the garden, because certainly I can just throw them somewhere to see how they do. And I really do like to experiment that way. But I have too many for my grow shelf. My grow shelf is way too small for all of these plants. And unfortunately, as these start to get bigger, and you can see here, the roots are already starting to come out. I'm gonna have to up pot these, probably into 4-inch pots like this. And only 16 4-inch pots fit in my seedling trays, while 32 of these small ones fit in my seedling trays. So all of these plants where the trays are filled up with 32 of these small pots are going to be cut in half when I have to up pot all of these tomatoes and peppers. So I really am trying to like get rid of some of them, but a lot of people who buy seedlings from local gardeners tend to be brand new gardeners, and of course if they're gonna buy seedlings from us, they would also go buy seedlings from Lowe's and Home Depot and those big box stores, but those plants are hardened off and they are ready to be planted outside. Mine are not, which isn't a deal breaker. I was selling them for cheaper because they weren't hardened off for those people that do have grow lights inside. But I think I'm just gonna find them easier to sell if I just harden them off now because I really need more space. I also have 64 various peppers and herbs here. There's a couple tomatoes, some flowers, but I need a bigger grow shelf. And I don't really want that to happen this season because I would have to redo all of my lighting, buy another shelf. So I'm just going to try and sell as many as possible. I'm also giving some away to my mom, my friends, neighbor. I just started so many, I always do this. So for those of you that are new to gardening, you may not know what hardening off is, which is a very, very important step to acclimating seedlings that you started indoors to the outside. If you don't do this kind of slow step to make your plants hardier before you plant them out in the garden, and you just go straight from indoors to outdoors, they'll probably die. They might not, they might just shock and be a little for a little while, but they very quite possibly might just die on you. So a seedling in a controlled indoor environment has perfect air temperature, perfect lighting, perfect water, no wind. And when they're put outside, they're suddenly exposed to all of these elements that they never had to contend with before. So what hardening off is slowly getting your indoor seedlings acclimated to an outdoor environment with sunlight, full-on UV rays, you know, breeze or wind. Like I have a lot of wind here, so it's very important that my plants are climatized to the wind. Dust, bugs, just general outdoor climate. Your plants need to adjust to being in that environment before you just throw them in the garden. So to harden off, there's tons of different ways you can do it. You can do like a crash course hardening off where it only takes a couple days. Or you can do it over a period of 2 weeks where you take your plants from indoor to outdoor for 1 hour, day 1. Then 2 hours, day 2, bring it back inside. Next day, 3 hours, bring it back inside. So on and so on, until they're able to spend a full day and night, as long as it's warm enough, outside without any problem. Now there are ways to help this along indoors before you start hardening off your plants. One exceptional way that I know of, because it really helps me, is putting a fan in the area where your seedlings are so that they're getting that wind indoors. what that fan helps do, first off, is it helps reduce disease pressure, because if it's a really humid, moist environment, then you're just gonna have mold and fungus growing on the surface of the soil. But secondly, it also sturdies up their stems. So the breeze makes the plant go like this, which sends signals to the plant to strengthen its stem and grow a more stable stem so that it can withstand breezes and winds and things like that. So putting a fan on your seedlings indoors is a really good idea, and it'll help when you do decide to harden off your plants before you transplant them out in your garden. Now you can do like a super fast hardening off if you have really mild weather and like cloudy days. So overcast days when it isn't full beating sun down on your baby seedlings, you can actually leave them out for longer than your prescribed time for that day. So yesterday, it was only my second day of hardening off those seedlings, and normally I would have left them out for 2 or 3 hours. But instead I left them out for half the day because it was overcast. And it just wasn't as brutal for them to be out longer, but it also helped speed up the process. So what I'm trying to do today is organize all of these seedlings and figure out what I need to keep, like all of the plants that I need to keep for the garden, and then what I just don't have room for in the garden. And this isn't taking into account what I don't have room for on my shelf, but I just keep giving away plants indiscriminately because I'm trying to make myself room. But I haven't actually taken any inventory of what I have and what I want in the garden from what I have. Now I do have a list of approximately how many tomato plants, pepper plants, and herbs I'm gonna be putting in the garden. And that's not all that's going in, but I have not started squash, cucumbers, beans, or anything like that yet. But for now, we're focused on herbs, tomatoes, and peppers from what I've started. And I'm gonna organize them into these trays for me only, and then separate trays for what I need to get rid of. And I think that will ease my anxiety a little bit because this is a lot. So the other day, this is my little garden notebook, I wrote out all of the pepper and tomato varieties I have, and I wrote how many I have of each and how many I want to keep of each, which looks about as messy as the inside of my head does right now. But I need to organize them into trays specifically, because whenever I have a friend or something that wants a plant, I just go and grab that plant when I find it in a tray. But I need to have specific trays delegated for keep here versus give away. So that's what we're doing today. And then these guys are gonna go right back outside to harden off a little bit. So I've decided I'm gonna keep about 25 tomato plants. Currently, with the raised bed space I have planned out, it gives me enough room for maybe 18 tomato plants. I'll have 8 in one bed and 10-ish in another. But I like to have extras in case something fails. And I also might throw a couple tomatoes in containers and a couple tomatoes in the in-ground garden bed. That will be an experiment for sure. And then for my peppers, I'm gonna be keeping around 30 peppers. And that's not including my red and green chilies, my New Mexico red and green chili. Those are gonna actually go in various places in the in-ground bed and the raised beds. And those are a solid number. Like, I need all those peppers because I grow those mainly for storage. For the green chili, I roast and freeze it, and then the red chili pods get dried to make red chili later on in the year. But as for all my eating peppers, like bell peppers, spicy peppers, and stuff like that, I've allotted at minimum 2 beds for them, and I can fit easily 12 pepper plants in an 8x4 bed. So that gives me about 24 plants, and then I have my extras for whatever. So as of right now, I'm gonna put all of the tomatoes I wanna keep in one tray and all of the peppers I wanna keep in another. As I said before, each of these 10 by 20 trays holds 32 of these Bootstrap Farmer pots. So that's what we're gonna do for now. And I say for now because these are getting dangerously close to needing to be transplanted into a bigger pot. And then all of this organization that I'm doing will be for naught. Why do I do this to myself? All right, let me get started. It's gonna take me a while and will probably be boring, so I'll time lapse it. Okay guys, so I have finished organizing the seedlings that I absolutely need for my garden. I have 3 trays of 32 plants each. Here are peppers and some herbs. These are tomatoes and some herbs, and mostly peppers over here. Now this leaves 1 and all these plants that I don't need, I can sell. I wouldn't mind having extras left over, which I absolutely surely will at the beginning of the garden season, that maybe I could just throw somewhere. But all of these seedlings are unnecessary for me currently with what I have room for in the garden laid out. So all of my plants are organized. I didn't gain any room by doing that, but I gained some organization in here. And I also found a few plants that need to be up potted. Now, obviously if you have like a huge plant, if this were like twice the size in this tiny little pot, that's an obvious indication that your plant needs to be up potted. But another indication is the roots coming out right here. And especially if the roots coming out are starting to swirl at the bottom, that's a huge indicator that your plant needs to be up potted. These are a little past due, so they might be pretty root bound when I take them out. I don't know, we'll have to see. But they're going from these like 2-inch pots to these guys, and that cuts my space in my 10 by 20 trays by half. So that means I absolutely have to get rid of some of these plants this week, because all of my tomatoes and peppers are going to need to be up potted soon as well. These are about the size of all my current tomatoes, and they're not doing too bad under here. You can't really see any roots, but I don't want them to get stunted. If they do end up getting a little bit root bound, I would rather just up pot them. Honestly, I would rather just buy another grow shelf and lights than risk damaging all of these seeds that I started. But I'm hoping I can expedite getting rid of these plants a little faster if I harden them off, and make a little bit of income while doing it. At least enough to pay for these pretty expensive bootstrap farmer seedling pots. So what I'm up potting today is a gold medal tomato, which is a yellow slicer that I've grown before. It is really, really good. It's one of the sweetest tomatoes I've ever grown. And then a Mexico midget, which is an amazing cherry tomato that was very, very prolific. I grew it the first year I lived here, and it performed beautifully with no shade cloth and full sun, so it was great. That's Mexico midget is definitely one of my favorite cherry tomato varieties that I've grown here successfully. Ooh, look at this. Now that is not as bad as it could be. It's pretty root bound. This right here is Coreopsis, which is a beautiful flower I haven't had a whole lot of luck with, but I wanted to give it another try this year. And I multi-sowed this, which was a huge mistake. I won't be doing that again, because this is actually like 20 plants. And I didn't have enough room earlier when I was up potting all my flowers a couple weeks ago. So I just left these in here to bunch like this. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to successfully break these apart. I'm not trying to get all of them separate. I kind of just want to rip the whole thing in half and make 2 separate plants out of it. I've never done that though with this flower, and I'm not sure how well it does with transplant. So it's an experiment, we'll see. I'm just gonna rip it. Oh, this hurts my heart. Oh my goodness, are you okay? Oh. I don't know if it, I hope it's gonna be okay, guys. If not, it's not too much of a loss. First off, I can start more, but secondly, it did really poorly in the heat for me last year. Although last year was a particularly bad year, and the weather has been much more forgiving this season. So I'm hoping I can get some flowers out of it because it's a beautiful flower. It's just not really a desert flower. We'll see how it does. You'll be the first to know. Well, I'll be the first to know, you'll be the second. Now for fertilizer, when I'm up potting these, all I have right here is some worm castings. I have some general purpose granular fertilizer that I've been using for my peppers and tomatoes, but I'm not really using it for the ornamentals that I'm growing. I don't think they need it. And honestly, the faster they grow, the faster I have to up pot and the less room I have. Now all this organization might be silly because I do plan on potting up my tomatoes and peppers this week. So it's gonna change up everything, all the work that I just did. It's gonna mess it up. But I think it's worth it in the end. I tend to be, well, I'm riddled with anxiety. So one of my favorite things to do constantly is clean, and I'm a very organized person. And if it's not clean in my house, or my brain is all jumbled up with things to do and I don't have a list, I tend to have analysis paralysis and just not do anything. So it really helps me to organize, even if it seems like a waste of time in the moment. It just really kind of resets my brain, and I mean immediately just helps me get through the day, because if my brain is, or if my surroundings are organized, then my brain is organized, and then I can function normally. Oh goodness. Oh, there it is. This is really root bound. Ooh, that looks nasty. So let me finish this up real quick and I will get back with you guys. All right guys, I have transplanted the ones I needed to plant. I didn't gain any space with my planting, but I did gain organization, and that's what matters. So 1, 2, 3, these 3 trays are my plants that are staying in my garden. And then 1, 2, 3, 4 trays are going to be sold or given away, and if I have extras I can put them somewhere. I just don't have room for them right now. And I realize this is a super nice problem to have, is having too many plants. But I definitely should have been more careful with my seed dropping when I was seeding all of these trays. I certainly don't want to be wasting seeds, and I love giving plants away, and this is my first year selling them, so I'm a little rough at it. But I also don't want to be wasting space and electricity and having to buy more items necessary to start seeds just because I started too many. So I'm hoping I can get rid of these plants. I wish I could just give them all to you guys, but I can't do that over the internet, and it's not feasible for me to ship them right now. So, oh, what a problem to have. Well guys, I have to go to the office today and I've got a ton of work to do, so I brought you along while I brought these plants out and up-potted a few of them. Chase also built me a collapsible brooder for the chicks, which I will have to show you on the next video, which will be soon. My mom is coming over tomorrow to do the drip irrigation, so I'll definitely be recording then. But thank you for joining me. Until the next one.